Now? Okay,
Okay,
so
that's fine.
Linda and I thought we would talk about how to successfully apply for shows, whether that's exhibits or fairs and festivals, and some of the things that we've learned along the way, the do's and don'ts and all of that good stuff. Um, I guess to give you some background on me, and then I'll have Linda do that too. I've been a potter for about 20 years, and I've been applying for shows probably about half that time. I specifically go after exhibits rather than fairs and festivals. I'm past the point where I want to haul a tent around. So I go after the shows that I would only have to ship 2 or 3 pieces, and national and international, regional, whatever I think my work is suitable for. One of the things that I have discovered is being organized is key in all of this. And my original background was in human resources, so I brought that with me on how to stay organized. Um, I keep a binder that looks like this. And in my binder, I have tabs for all of my shows. And I keep track of all of the details, like, I'll just read it to you real quick. Like, when do I have to apply by? What's the location or the website? What's the DPI on the images, the entry fee, whether it's national or international? What is the actual type of exhibit? Is it just cups? Is it anything? Is it floral? Is it blue? You'd be surprised at some of the categories. When they might notify us by, when it has to be shipped by, and then the information on the pieces I've entered. I keep track of all of it so that I don't accidentally apply for 2 exhibits with the same piece or sell a piece that I'm still waiting on a response for. Um, I make sure that I know where everything is at all times so that I don't lose a $300 teapot somewhere along the way. Um, one of the ways that I find these exhibits is the back of, for me anyway, the back of Ceramics Monthly Magazine has a list every month. If I've been accepted into an exhibit somewhere, I make sure I join their mailing list so that next year they send me an email and I don't have to think about it. I join groups on social media that revolve around shows, and I see what catches my attention, what I think my work is a good fit for. Um, I will also watch what other people are doing on social media. And if somebody gets into an exhibit at ABC Gallery in Nevada, I'm going to go look at that and see if that's a good fit for me too, maybe for next year. Um, but all in all, I try to maintain a list year long of what I want to enter and when I need to do it by. And I also keep a stash of pots that are suitable for entries. Um, some of the things that I have discovered along the way that I have found to be very useful to pass on is follow the rules. If the call for entry says your image must be 300 DPI and square, I've got a couple that your images have to be square. Don't send something else. There have been jurors that I've spoken to that say, we look at the specs first. And if your image doesn't meet our specs, we don't even look at it. So you might have wasted a $30 entry fee on that. I know that sounds nitpicky, but that's their rules that they expect everybody to follow. If it says that your images must be 1920 by 1920, you got to do that. If it says they only want 4 images, only send 4 images. Follow all of those guidelines and you'll be more successful. For my purposes, I don't alter any of my photos. I take quality photos and I either crop them or alter the specs according to what they need. I like Photoshop. I'm terrible at it, but it does what I need it to do. So follow the rules, which kind of leads into the next part of it is once you do get accepted, you gotta have to continue to follow the rules. And if you have applied for a show where you have to ship something, and it says no packing peanuts, don't send packing peanuts. They will tape your box up and send it back. And that's at your cost. Again, that sounds nitpicky, but that's their rules. I have curated enough shows to know that when rules are not followed, guidelines are not followed, specs are not followed, it's creating work for somebody else. And that's not something they signed up for. I think that when a gallery is trying to hang a show that has 100 pieces in it, all of those deviations from those rules create a mess. So not only do you need to follow the rules when you're applying, you need to follow the rules after you've applied and been accepted. Does that all make sense so far?
It does.
Yeah.
And that brings up a lot. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, I know as a photographer, I started out by doing a lot of exhibits too. And one of the things is that I saw a lot was no sawtooth hangers on my framed prints and stuff like that. And so, I got what I needed so that any frames I could wire them so that I would, qualify, because I've seen people turned away when they're dropping their artwork off and they're like, sorry, we can't hang this,
and
so
the organizations that don't turn people away when they don't follow the rules are not doing anybody any favors.
That's correct.
Because they're just encouraging people to, take the rules as suggestions and not rules. I'm not as organized as Angel is, but I do I do keep records of what I applied for and the dates. And because when you're looking for your notification, you're anxious because you never know. You can't assume that you're going to get into anything. And we don't. But our $35, $40 application fees are, that's not easy money. That's just cha-ching. That's money gone, whether we get in or not. So to make sure that your applications are for shows or exhibitions that fit your work is probably the most important thing. If your work does not fit that show, if you're just starting out and you apply for the Smithsonian show, you're probably not going to get in. You might, but I'm going to guess that you're wasting that money until you get more experience in your applications and your photographs, and you do a little research into what did get in, what their photographs look like, because all you have to do is go on the website and of a show, and you will find the photos of those people's work. You will find their links. And so see who got in, see what is in your category, see what quality of work that they've accepted. That's still not a guarantee, but that's going to give you a lot of insight as to what they're looking for, what they've let in this year, and the quality of work. If you can't afford a $500 tent fee at a show, why waste your jury fee? There's no point in it. I can't afford a $675 tent fee on an outdoor show, so I'm not applying for those shows. Ego-wise, I'd like to know if I could get in, but realistically, I'm not going to do that show. So, why waste your money?
Plus, if you go to those websites where people have been accepted with their images, you can see the quality of the image, like clean, crisp backgrounds, or no frames, no glare on glass, a variety of different things that might not occur to you because you're just getting started. One of the things that we were taught early on when we started applying for some of these things is don't use a wrinkled sheet as your backdrop. And yet people do.
Yes. And don't use your Etsy shots. I mean, there's a difference between the same difference between a craft show setup and an art show setup is the same difference between art show images and your Etsy images. You're not marketing your vase. So don't put fake flowers in it and put it on a table and have a window behind it. That's an Etsy shot. They don't want to see that. They want to see the image. They want to see what it is you're selling. And and what I was told early on is they don't need to see a shot of the inside of it. They know a vase has an inside. They know that 3D pieces have a backside to them. you don't have to show them that. They get it. So, and then the other biggest problem that most people have with their jury images is juries do not want to see your range. Do not want to see that you can do watercolor and pastel and oil, or that you can do landscapes and still lifes and portraits. They don't want to see that. They want to see a consistent body of work throughout those 4 images or 5 images, whatever. So it's very common for people to want to put it all out there. That's not what they want to see. They want to know that you're an artist who can put out a consistent body of work, just like a gallery wants to, when they're vetting their artists for a gallery, they want to know that you have a consistent body of work, that when they look at that work, they can say, oh, I know who did that. Not great for a jury because they know who did it. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it works against you. But still, after you've been doing your work for a while, you will develop your own style. And everybody here, I'm sure already has, you have your style. And if people can walk up to a piece and say, oh, I know who made that piece. I mean, I can spot an Angel Brame cup a half a mile away. I know her work. And so do a lot of other people. But because she has worked on and I don't know the word. She's made her work consistent, whether it's not the same color, same thing with paintings. Just because you're doing, if you're doing photography, say, you don't want to show, and I'm sure Kim can attest to this, you don't want to show a full color landscape and then a black and white moody print. That's not what they want to see. So
then a kind of a flip side to that is sometimes when you get accepted into these smaller exhibits, it leads to other things. So consistency in your body of work is helpful. Just as a short example, I had one piece accepted into an exhibit in New York, and it won a small award and it sold. And within a couple weeks, they contacted me and said, hey, do you have more? We have a holiday show coming up. We'd like to include more of your pieces. And because it was a part of a body of work, I was able to say, oh, I've got 5 of them. How about these? And send them off. Consistency, quality body of work, that is really important. If you're just starting out and you haven't found your voice in your medium, keep working at it because it does pay off.
And edit what you apply with. I still have problems with that myself. I've been doing shows now for about maybe 10 years, maybe a little less than that. I've been an artist longer than that, but I always say that I'm a student of art shows, of outdoor art shows. I find them endlessly fascinating. The marketing of your work at a show, your display, other people's display, the jury process, it's all fascinating to me. So when I go to a show, first I look at displays. Before I even look at the work, I look at the display. How did they display that? What do their price tags look like? How did they hang that work? How did they put lights up? How did they light their work? All of those things are important, but it takes a lot of time to get there. But I always tell young artists, no matter what show that you're doing, whether it's in a high school gymnasium or you're in a field with 100 other artists, you should put your best display forward. You would not take a painting and put it in a crappy frame because that doesn't show your work. It doesn't do your work justice, and it doesn't respect your work. So think about your display the same way. Your display is a reflection of you and your work. And if you have a crappy display, even you don't have to have an expensive display. You just have to have a neat and professional looking display. And if it's neat and crisp and people can see your work, you have to put your best foot forward no matter what show you're doing. So dress for the job you want, display for the shows you want to get into.
Well, and that goes for the shows that are curated with groups. If
Mhm.
you get accepted into a show with a 2D piece and all you have submitted is just your image, no frame, and then you deliver the piece with a dusty, crusty old barnwood frame, there's a
Mhm.
strong chance they're not going to hang that. They're going to see is that barnwood frame, which might be okay in some situations, but maybe not in a gallery situation. Um, as a positive example, the show that we just did in Alton, Illinois for On the Road, we had one jeweler and she took frames, removed the glass, added fabric, like crisp, clean, simple fabric and some padding, and she hung her pieces in the frames, which gave the gallery an opportunity to hang that frame at eye
Mhm.
level to be seen by everyone. It was brilliant. I don't do jewelry. I wish I had thought of that.
Mhm.
But she put her best foot forward. She thought outside of the box, and consequently, I believe she took an award because her piece was right there at eye level. So yes, you want to think outside of the box, but you still want to keep that level of professionalism too. You want the piece to be seen, not the frame, not the display extras. You want the artwork to be seen.
And that's a kind of a problem. That's a question that a lot of people, 2D artists, always say. Well, when I submit my photos for a jury on my 2D piece, do I include the frame in the photo? No, you don't. You only include the art. You do not include the frame. But then it's up to you to, when you go, well, of course, when you're going to an art show, an outdoor art show, you're putting up your own display. It's a little different than sending your piece to a show at an exhibition where it's going to be hung by somebody else on a wall or in a venue. Um, but still, when you send your jury photos, no frame. When you present, you have to frame. So it's up to you to make that frame or presentation of any kind.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah. Yep.
So when you're talking about cropping photos
Mhm.
and not showing a frame, do you just not show the whole painting if, say, they want a square photo and your painting
No.
is rectangular?
You crop it to the photo or to the art. You do not crop it smaller than the art. And then if they're asking for a square format, then you put it in your Photoshop or whatever, and you make the canvas size the square format, and then it just has the black bars, just like my image does here. What it's showing, you have those black bars on the side to make it
Okay.
a square image. Because when juries are looking at photographs, they want all the images to be the same DPI and the same shape or format, so that when they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, if you can imagine what it would be like if they had a 200 DPI this size and then a huge one this size and then a small one, it would just be so distracting. So, but yes, you use the black bars. So you just
Okay.
make the canvas black.
Sometimes, like when I was referring to, the image has to be square. Sometimes that's for a publication, and they
Mhm.
don't want to have to crop your photos for you. They want to be able to just drop it in where they want it and move on.
Mhm. Yep.
I have another
What Jamie,
question.
what kind of photo program are you using?
I have Lightroom, which I find easy to use. I have Photoshop, which I'm currently annoyed that it's a subscription, and I'm considering moving to Affinity because it's a one-time purchase. But I haven't learned it yet.
Mm,
So options. I have options.
yes, good.
I do have another question though, if
Mhm.
we're ready for that.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know, I'm not familiar with everyone on this call, but my medium is encaustic, and so I can't do outdoor shows.
Mhm.
But there is a lot of benefit just talking to people at shows, but there are very few indoor shows. And so the exhibition route is like the group exhibit at a gallery is enticing to me, but then you don't have that opportunity to talk to customers. And if something sells, you don't even know who it's sold to. So I'm
Exactly.
kind
Because
of curious
when
if
you
you guys
sell
can talk
stuff at
about that.
I'm sorry, when you sell stuff at a gallery, they retain the customer information. They
Right.
retain your 40 or 50%. They retain the customer information. And yeah, that's the disadvantage to, well, everything has an advantage and disadvantage. When you do outdoor shows or exhibitions, you, like you said, you can talk to your customers face to face. You can gather their contact info, and you can include them in showing where you're going to be in the next time. So indoor shows though would be open to you.
There just aren't very many quality shows, and I don't have the budget to spend $3,000 traveling to a show, say in Texas.
Right.
So I guess I'm looking for tips,
A
things you guys
couple
have
of
learned.
thoughts, a couple of thoughts that I would throw out to you.
Yeah.
Make sure on the back of your artwork that, if somebody buys it in the gallery, have your business information, your website, business card attached, something attached to the back of the artwork. So if they
Okay.
want to follow you or contact you or find more of your artwork, they have a way to do that.
Mhm.
Some galleries actually ask for your business cards and do give them when a piece sells or if someone asks. So not all galleries are completely closed to connecting you with customers, because some of them also are open to connecting you for commissions and other things. So, being open and working with your galleries opens up those opportunities as well. So don't just assume that you can't connect with, and also if you are close to the galleries, go to the opening reception. You get
Of
to meet the
course.
customers and all that when you're there, or even just stop by the gallery if it's kind of in your hood once in a while, because you never know if you might run into a customer that happens to be in there at that time.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of some of these shows that are further away in other states that tend to do more with encaustic and have more.
And Angel ships her work, so she ships her work to shows and exhibitions. Angel, do you use the cafe website for the call for artist?
So I use Cafe Entry Thingy, and there's a third one, but I'm drawing a blank on what that one is. And I gauge whether or not I'm going to apply by that. If it's shipping to France, forget it. But anything in the US, I might apply for. And I have just become decent at packing my fragile stuff and getting it to wherever it needs to go safely. I have only had one incident, and that was here lately, and that was my fault. I actually broke something while I was packing it. Outside of that, I have very little issue. And like I said, I just follow the rules. I know that if I'm shipping something and they say no packing peanuts, I don't use packing peanuts. If I have to include a return shipping label, I do that. It's to me, it's just not a big deal to ship anywhere across the US. I also can say that because my work it's heavy. I have an account with the Postal Service, Click and Ship, and with FedEx. I don't know, maybe Kim, you can answer this. I was grandfathered in, and maybe it's not available anymore, but I have a FedEx account because of my juried membership through Best of Missouri Hands, and I get a discount on every shipment. I don't know that that's still a perk for us, but it definitely has saved me money. And I have found that when you're shipping breakable stuff, if you can use FedEx, they are infinitely better than UPS in their drop rates. And if you can use the Postal Service, they're even better.
Yes.
Each each has its own pluses and minuses. I have discovered that if I'm shipping in a smaller box, especially if it's square, Postal Service is better. If it's going to a residence, I check both rates. If it's going to be anything bigger than a 12 cube, I go FedEx, especially if I'm going to a place of business, because it will be cheaper that way. All of this is just trial and error over the years. And unfortunately taking some extra time to make sure that I'm using the right service for the rate.
Wow.
I also, and I don't know if it's available anymore, but I shipped a sculpture up to Chicago and used the postal service hand carry option, which was an extra $12. And the customer said that the postal worker brought it to her door, rang her doorbell, and put it in her hands, which
Wow.
is what you pay for. The shipping was expensive, but when you're
Mhm.
doing one of a kind sculptures, it's not like I can go to the back room and get another one. I mean, that's the only one that existed. So and she paid the shipping. I told her it was going to be, it was like $75 shipping, but she was happy to pay it because she wanted the piece to get there intact. And she was thrilled with the hand carry option for the postal service. I don't know if that still is a thing. But that would be something to check. But Jamie, do you have? Are you a member of some groups where that you can ask other encaustic artists how they ship their work?
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with how some of them ship. Some of them build expensive wooden crates. Some of them, I mean, I've seen all kinds of shipping methods. I'm more concerned with balancing my cost with my sales at this point because sales are coming in slower than costs are stacking up.
Right. And we have to, and exhibitions, and Angel, like Angel said, you never know where that might lead.
Right.
Sometimes we have to get our bookkeepers to say this, the cost to ship this piece and to exhibit it was, put that under promotions because
Yeah.
that's what it is. I mean, you're promoting your work, whether you sell that piece or not, you still have to network. And that's a form of your networking, is to send your work somewhere where you don't have a customer base so they can see your work. And maybe one piece in an exhibition of 100 pieces won't make a big impact, but you never know that. You never know that somebody's not going to, or who's going to see it. And the more eyes on your work, the better.
Right. And in all of that, you keep track of all those costs. And when it comes time for April 15th to roll around every year, you make sure you include all of those costs
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing your taxes.
And you can put that in your binder. You can have a little an envelope on the page of the show, of the exhibitions that you've entered, and put all those expenses in that folder. And that way you'll know, and you can go back at the end of the year. I'm getting ready to do it now. I'll go back at the end of the year and I will put in all my expenses for, say, Arts Fest on Walnut Street. What did it cost me, including meals and any other expenses? And what did I make? Because you ask artists, well, how did you do? And I had a $10,000 show. Well, you might have sold $10,000 worth of product, but you didn't make $10,000.
Mhm.
You still that's not your profit. That's your gross sales receipts, which is a good indicator. And a lot of artists have a formula that they use if they'll go back to a show. How much is the tent fee and the application? And some artists say, well, I've got to make 3 times that in order for it to be a profitable show for me. If I don't make 3 times that, I'm not going back to that show. Well,
I
a
add to that.
$2,000 show is successful for some people, and some people aren't successful unless they hit 10,000. So it's all up to you, really. What you have to run your own numbers.
And I add to that, if I had just spent 8 hours at a show and sales weren't great, how much work could I have created in that 8 hours?
Mm-hmm.
And does that outweigh whatever sales I might have had? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the answer is, yeah, I should have stayed in the studio.
Yep. Yeah, and the same goes with we're getting ready to do the $100 and under show, and there's a lot of them all across the state, all these holiday pop-up markets. And last year, there's a local ceramic artist here who sells at farmers markets. And I asked him, I said, are you going to do the $100 show? And he said, no, the commission worried me. And I'm like, well, the Arts Council takes 25% commission. Run your numbers. I don't think that you going to the farmer's market on a Saturday morning and spending those hours at the farmer's market, and the fee that you're paying and the expenses that you're incurring are probably any more than that 25%. it's probably equal. So you still have to customize what you're applying for your work. Joanne, what is your medium?
I'm a bookbinder and an embroidery artist.
And do you show at fiber shows or?
Right now, I'm mainly doing bookbinding, and I've incorporated my embroidery into my books.
And what category would that fit in?
It's usually under mixed media.
Because it's bookbinding, it's embroidery, it's decoration.
Right, right.
And
And I have not done any shows in a long time. I've done pop-ups, and I've done, I'm one of the teachers at Bowood Farms, so I do their show they have twice a year for all the artists that teach there. I guess the last show I've done has been at least 6 years ago.
And are you thinking of doing more shows this coming year or?
Possibly, yes. And mine would have to be indoor shows too, because I can't take a chance that, you know,
with paper.
in the weather, the paper just starts warping.
And I think Jamie would be the same. She could only do indoor shows because of her encaustic.
Right. I've done encaustic too. I have art ADD, just letting y'all know.
Yeah, me too.
Same. That's why I call everything mixed media.
Me too. Me too. I mean, I paint. I started out as a fiber artist, then I started painting acrylic, and then I started doing paper marbling, which I do a lot of that. And then I had all my paper, and I'm like, what am I going to do with it? So then I started making books, and then I said, well, I like embroidery, so I brought it. So now I'm just kind of putting it all together into one pot.
And can you pull together 4 photos of the work that you do and see a consistent a style that runs through all of those?
Well, pretty much. And that's kind of my problem, because I don't do duplicate books. They're all, you know, one of a kind. And they're all, I mean, the thing that would be similar, I guess now, would be all of them have an embroidery concept somewhere in it. Whether the cover has been, and I hand dye the fabric and I hand dye the threads, and then I embroider the covers. So either the cover's embroidered or the tabs, the ribbon that goes around the side in a French leek are embroidered. That's the only thing.
Well,
and I'm really confused on how to do pictures of books. You know, for Etsy, like you said, you take a picture of the front, the back, the side, you stand it up, you do, you know, everything. But for an art show, would it be laying flat? Then you don't see the binding. Or if you stand it up, you see the binding, but you don't really always see all the cover.
I think you would have to probably look at some of the better shows that have a lot of artists and find bookbinders.
There's not many.
There's not too many. I know there's one here in Springfield.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what her images are like, but
do you know what her name is?
Jennifer Walken. I'm not sure if she's showing anymore. I think she is.
But if I look her up, she might have have photos on her.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can also do an inquiry on Art Fair Lounge and say, hey, I'm a bookbinder and I need to connect with other bookbinders and give me examples of how you photograph your work for jury images. And jury image evaluation Facebook group would be a great one to make that ask. And I mean, just put it out there. They're out there. You just got to find
it. What's it called?
Jury image evaluation.
Okay.
That's a Facebook group. Of course, all these Facebook groups like this are private groups that you have to join so they can keep the Wookiees out.
Okay. Okay.
And sometimes when you are applying for these situations, you are allowed to do detail images. So you can have your book open and then the detail is the binding or vice versa. And that helps with pieces that are not flat.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to read the instructions on each show. And if you have any questions, I encourage you to email. There's always an email address. You know, send them an email and say, hey, I'm not really sure how to do this. and let them tell you, because they're the ones that are making the rules, and they're the ones that are going to be either looking at your jury photos or instructing their jury.
Okay.
So, use that. There's always a contact information on show info, and
I have
definitely send them an email.
I have another question. When you're taking your photos for your background and your backdrop, is it better for it to be white, black, gray? Does it matter?
Well, the standard is gradiated from dark to light. And if you look on jury photos, you'll find
There's
they're
mine.
almost always gradiated, but it kind of depends on the work.
Okay.
What is an Angel? You got one?
There's mine.
Is that your background?
That's my background.
Okay.
But that's not what you use on your photos. Your photos of your cups are always have a plain background.
No, that's what I use.
Is that gray? I can't tell.
It's black to white.
Oh, I see
Oh, I
it
see it.
now.
I see it back there.
I
Yeah.
see it now.
So-
I thought that was a shadow. Okay.
So it's black to white, and I have it curved in the center. I have some lights hanging over the top, though I don't use those as much as I used to. I am more likely to just use daylight. I am not a photographer, and I
neither.
have found that if I try to alter the lighting, it has a yellow hue to it, and I don't like that at all. So I'm more likely to just stick with what's going on around me. And keep them uniform. I don't want to submit 3 images to an exhibit and one have yellowish tint to it and the other two
Right.
have crisp white tint
Right.
to it. So I keep everything uniform. And I keep my backdrop clean. I try not to put anything on it unless I'm actually going to take that photograph, because they scratch very easily. I get it from B&H. Does that
Sorry.
sound right to you, Linda? B&H Photography. And I'm probably on my 6th one, because they do scratch, but it's an investment. I pay about maybe $80 for it. And it gives me this crisp, clean, non-wrinkled, non-dusty, non-scratched backdrop for all of my work. Whether I'm putting something on Etsy, which I haven't done in a while, but Etsy or shows, or putting stuff up for sale on Facebook. That's the backdrop I use for everything.
And it's really helpful if you have the room to set up. If you can buy light boxes on Amazon cheap anymore. They're nylon. They have lights with them. Sometimes they work well. Sometimes they don't. Like Angel said, outdoors is the best lighting. So just, if you want to experiment with just getting a piece of photo gray paper, flat gray paper, a roll that's long enough to roll it and get a curve so you don't have that seam, and take it outside if you have a deck, if you're in the shadow and in the on the west side in the afternoon or in early morning, and set that up out on your porch and get down on the ground and zoom in just a little bit so that you get rid of that left and right gaps or whatever, or you can always crop afterwards. But experiment, take pictures 3 or 4 different ways like that. And usually the outdoor photos for 3D work are phenomenal. They usually come out the best. Not so much for 2D work, especially acrylic. Very difficult to photograph without glare. But for 3D work, outdoors is probably the easiest, the cheapest, and the best. Unless you're putting in your application at 10 minutes to midnight on a Sunday night when the deadline, and you don't have a photograph. That's not so good. Who's been there?
Yep.
But you can buy light boxes. You can make a light box. If you look up DIY light box, you can make a light box out of a cardboard box and white paper, tissue paper. And take that outside and let natural light filter in, and then you just have to figure out how to, stand your book up, take some different, lay it down, whatever. But if you look at photography, show photography, even if they're not books, I'm sure that you can pick up some tips when you look at the way other jury photos.
Plus, the
Oh,
first time you're
yes.
doing it, you might consider if you know any photographers or anyone who has a good setup, to pay them to help you not only take the pictures, but edit them in the context of showing you how to do it, but also getting your first good set of jury pictures. I know if you live in the St. Louis area, I think Patty Minix will help you with that, but I'm sure if you just go out on members only and ask, you'll find somebody in your area that'd be happy to help you with that first set of photos. I can't remember the guys. What's Larry? Guys, help me out. He's in St. Louis. He does editing for juried photos.
He doesn't anymore, Wanda.
He
He
doesn't anymore.
passed
But I
last
used
year.
him my first time. And so if you can find somebody like that will just help you so that you understand, now you see, now you've got 4 or 5 images that have been edited. And so when you do it yourself, then, when you're ready for your next set of jury, you now have a better standard of what to use. It's worth it to get that help if you can find some.
And that
I
always,
think if you just ask.
that goes back to the consistent body of work also. You don't have to necessarily have those exact pieces that you jury in with at that show. You have to have similar pieces, the same body of work. So, if Angel puts in 4 images of cups and she comes to the show, she sold those 4. The other 4 cups that she have are going to look similar to the same body of work. So that's a question that a lot of people ask. Well, what if I take a jury photo of this painting and I've sold the painting? Well, my other paintings all kind of go together with that same body of work. I don't have to have that particular painting. I just have to have the same body of work. Now, if your body of work completely changes and you're using old jury images, they can figure that out usually. They'll ding you for that. And this mock jury in St. Louis that Kim wrote about here, just mentioned, is an awesome exercise in watching a jury work. And I've actually applied for it this year, Kim. I'm hoping to go up and get some critique.
But
Any mock jury is worth your time.
Yeah.
But on that note, read the fine print. If you are going after just an exhibit that you have 3 or 4 pieces that you've applied with, sometimes they will say, do not send substitutes. What you juried
Well, yeah,
anyway.
that's true.
Yeah.
I was speaking about like an outdoor exhibit where you're going to be doing,
Right.
you're going to be putting in 30 pieces of your own work. You don't necessarily have to have those, but you're right. And I don't do those exhibits, Angel, but I hope to sometime. So I'll use you as my resource for doing those kind of shows and shipping work and that kind of thing. But when you were talking about putting a tag on the back and putting your card on the back of your work, some galleries take those off. Some galleries do not want your contact information on those pieces because they don't want the customer to contact the artist unless they contact you. So how I get around that is I write on the back of my canvas with a pencil and I put my contact information. They can't take that off. So just putting a card on the back of your piece is a great thing. But also either write it on the frame, write your email address or your contact, your website on the frame inside on the back of your work, or some way to where they're not going to remove it.
So going on that note too, after curating the on the road shows, 2 extra notes is if your piece is not tagged properly for these exhibits, having your name and email address on the frame would be truly beneficial.
Yes.
Because there are times that people deliver things and we don't know who that belonged to because things get crazy. The other note on that is, and I didn't know this because I'm not a photographer, but having your watermark on pieces that are going to be juried for, say, first, second, third prize type situations is not a good idea.
No.
I didn't know that because my signatures on the bottom of my pieces, not out there for everyone to see. And it's Something to consider, is your watermark huge and distracting? Is it going to take away from whoever is standing in front of your piece with ribbons in their hand and maybe price checks in their hand? So that's something else to keep in mind when you are entering these juried situations, is watermarks on things is not a good idea.
Not for jury photos.
Mm-mm.
You'll get kicked right out.
Yeah, and that's one thing too that I see pretty common, because with the St. Louis Art Fair, I've attended their mock jury for years now, and then I also sit in on the real jury for the actual show, and a lot of painters will have their signature and their jury image, and almost always that's just an automatic out. That's an easy reason for them, just because it's supposed to be a blind jury. So if you are a painter, or like Angel, how you put a watermark on yours or whatever, for your submissions, I would recommend, like, if you're a painter, that you photograph your work before you put your signature on, or Photoshop that out, because they will know that you Photoshop that out, and that's okay. But if they've got all these paintings up there and it's got your signature across them, it's, they get, 1,800 applications or whatever. So it's easy, just an easy no. So they can get down to the ones that have followed the rules. Like Angel said, follow those rules. I mean,
I
they're there
I
for
have
a reason.
myself made that mistake and not gone in, and because I think, oh, the signature's small on those paintings, I don't need to blur that out. Yeah, I do. And I didn't. And so now I need to go back into all my, and I've only done it on a few so far, but I need to go back into my Zapplication,
Mhm.
my portfolio, and I need to edit all those photos and make sure that the signature is blurred.
Yeah.
And actually, I
Yeah.
didn't
It's
do
the
that.
same.
I didn't do that for the
Yeah,
jury for St. Louis. They're gonna ding
right.
me. That's
You know
okay.
what? Well, they'll just probably mention it. They get so many that do have it. After a while, they might not mention it, but
Mhm.
when you enter for the actual show, then I would definitely make sure yeah, it might get brought up. And it's the same with signage if you're submitting a booth shot. So many
Right.
artists just don't think about it, and they've got their banner hanging there,
Mhm.
or their business cards out on their desk and stuff like that. And all of those are, for a lot of shows, would just be an easy
Yeah.
out, because you didn't follow the
Yes.
rules. You should be a
The
blind
young
jury.
artist that asked me to look at his jury photos, he said, "Well, I didn't get in the Arts Fest. Can you look at my jury photos?" And I said, "Sure." Well, his 10 shot had a picture of him at the farmer's market, standing behind his table of work with a sign in the front, smiling big and being proud of his work. And I'm like, "That's an auto out, man. You can't do that." And he was like, "Oh, I just didn't know that." Well, if you would have read anything on Zapplication, has huge resources on photos and booth shots in particular, then he was out before they even looked at his work because of that shot. And it's a shame for him because he wasted that money. So
Mm-hmm.
reading the rules is, like I said, if it's going to be on pavement and you can't set up on pavement, if it's going to be outdoors and you can't set up outdoors, you got to read those quick facts first before you even bother. And then I suggest you go through Zapplication. I always suggest too that you take a map and draw a radius of how many miles you're willing to travel, or star where you have relatives or friends that you can stay with. And then look at shows that are coming up, look at the calendar, and make you a list of what you might want to apply for. And then if you can take a little bit of time to get your images together, get your portfolio together on Zapplication or wherever on Cafe, and you'll be able to look at that in January and go, this is what I want to apply for. And a lot of artists apply for more than one show on a weekend. See which one they get into. If they get into both, they can choose. There's a lot of planning that goes into it if you're planning on doing a lot of outdoor shows. Virgine, what are you doing? What is your medium? You're muted. There you are.
Mosaics. I have a lot of questions. We are fairly new to St. Louis, really just 4 years, and part of it was pandemic. So I've never had trouble in 3 states that I've lived in getting into shows, and I'm fairly depressed about getting into shows. I applied to do the mock jury. I'm afraid to be there because I'm afraid I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I'm afraid it's everything. um, I didn't know about no frames in the photos because my mosaics are, some of the frames add to it, but if I need to zero in on the actual mosaic, I will. Um, the other question I have is the tent shot. I mean
Booth
the
shop.
tent and booth shot. We have set up the booth so many times in our yard. It's just like you just wouldn't believe it. But I have changed the background of my booth. But my question is, should the picture be the whole booth with the white top, or should it just be just the bottom?
It should be the opening, and around, you should be able to kind of see the sides, and if Kim can correct me if
Okay.
I'm wrong, you should just see like an indication of the sides and the top, and you want it square on, and
Okay.
is that right,
Okay.
Kim? Am I saying that right?
They don't really need to see your tent at all. They don't need to see what kind of dome it
Okay.
is. If you got walls up in your tent, they
Yeah.
just need to see your artwork on the walls. They don't
Okay.
need to really see
Okay.
the edge of the tent and stuff.
You know,
But if you've
I
got a
I
little bit of the edge, that's fine. You
Yes.
just
Yeah.
don't need to see the big dome. You don't need to see your
okay.
neighbors.
That I was doing wrong, but I did
Well,
it right this year.
Linda,
It's just several shows, and I'm still not getting in.
Virgin,
So
you should join the Jury Images
Jury image
evaluations
evaluation
face.
website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because if
Facebook
nothing
group.
else, there's so many good examples of
Mhm.
other people's work, and you'll see all the comments that people make
okay.
on other people's booths and juried shots. You can learn a lot just by
You
surfing
can.
through that Facebook group.
I wrote it down. I wrote it down when you first mentioned it.
And when you're ready to submit some photos on that Facebook group, do 2 or 3 of those, since you've set it up
Okay.
so many times. Just
Okay.
put them all out there and say, just be prepared for the criticism, knowing that people are trying to help you.
Okay. No,
you know,
I'm prepared.
Good.
I just don't understand. I go to the shows and there are no mosaics. So
Right.
I don't,
So are
I-
you entering under mixed media?
I'm entering under glass
Well, that might
because
be.
it's all stained glass.
Huh.
I
That
don't
might be a
know.
question. That might be a question for the show
Oh,
producers
interesting.
to say, I'm not sure if this would be in the glass category or in the mixed media. You may be entering in the wrong category.
Oh, geez. Okay.
I don't know
But-
about that because I've seen people mosaics. I'm a glass artist, and there's a
Mhm.
wide variety of glass, and
There
I've
is,
seen
there
all
is.
of it under the glass category. But I think it would be a problem if you also tried under mixed media. Like I said, you
Okay.
could probably contact, if there's a show you really want to get into, I'd contact them and ask them. But I have seen mosaics under the glass category. So the only thing that, if they only let so many in each category, and they're comparing glass blowers and stained glass and mosaics, I don't know if that might impact you versus a mixed media, because part of it might come down to looking at last year's show and how many people they had in each category. If they had a lot of glass and very few mixed media, maybe apply under mixed media because you really would fit under either one.
Okay.
And the
That's
people
really a good point to make is categories.
Mhm.
Categories are very important. If you can enter in mixed media, I would enter in mixed media because that's for painters and caustic books. Mixed media is usually the category that has the least amount of entries.
Interesting.
And,
Okay.
when I got some feedback, I applied for Shaw show this year, the Shaw, what's it called? The Shaw Botanical Historic. I can't remember the name of the show
Yeah,
exactly.
something like that.
Yeah.
Historic shop.
Yeah.
Historic shop.
They actually didn't notify me, and that's another place where my binder came in. The notification day came and went. A week after came and went. 2 weeks came and went. I had no notification. So I wrote him, I emailed him, and I said, hey, this is the first time for me applying. And maybe I missed the notification. I knew I hadn't. But anyway, I got some fantastic feedback from the guys that are running that show. They apologized. They said, no, we're sorry, you were declined, which is fine. Decline can be very educational. And this one was in particular, because he sent me the bios on all the jurors, and said, by the way, the jury will change next year. We encourage you to apply again. So that made me feel better about the decline. But he also sent me how many entries were in each category. Well, the painting category is what I entered. The painters had, I don't know, there was 45 entries for painting, and they took 15. The mixed media or the sculpture category had 5 entries, and they took 3. So what's the difference in percentage there? So I'm like, well, I do sculpture too. Maybe next year I will apply in the painting category with 1 application, and then also apply in sculpture with another entry. And if they have a ton of painters, which they usually do, but they don't have so many sculptors, maybe I'll get in with sculpture. So you can look at the stats for the shows. That most of them aren't going to give you that detailed of information that he sent me, but you can kind of look at the categories of who they did accept, and you'll see, out of 100 artists, 60 of them are painters, 30 of them are jewelry, so look at those categories. If you're flexible with your categories, you might use that to your advantage.
Mm.
Okay, Barbara, we haven't heard from you.
You want to know what I do? I have been an abstract photographer, but I am now incorporating that abstract photography into collage. So I guess that's mixed media.
Yes. And are you applying this year to with your new body of work to shows?
I hope to. I just need enough of it. And I need to make sure that I've built up that consistency. With my photography, yeah, I can do that. I have a lot of work in the abstract photography realm. But the collage is more new for me.
Well, it's exciting to change in midstream and to say, you know what, I think I'll do a new body of work. I'm there with you. I'm getting ready to do that myself.
Somebody mentioned ADD, artist ADD. Yeah.
Yeah. It's counterintuitive to shows to be ADD, because one of my early shows, I had the artist, and maybe a lot of you may know him, Randall Spangler. He lives in Kansas City. He's a very successful artist. He did shows for years. He doesn't do shows anymore because a lot of his work he's licensed it, and it's in puzzles and embroidery and these diamond things. He licensed a lot of his work. He's very successful, but he's a very generous and kind artist who was willing to give me constructive criticism early on. And one of my very first shows that I ever did, which I thought was like a big show. It wasn't a big show, but it was a nicer show than I had done. And I had a lot of the work that I did. I just did like what every beginner does. I put everything out there because I was afraid that if I didn't fill up my booth, that somebody might walk by and the piece that they would be interested in wouldn't be out, and so it's a real rookie mistake. And I made them all. And he came to my booth on Sunday morning, and he said, I really like your work. He said, but I see 3 different mediums in your tent. He said, you could have a whole booth of this one, you could have a whole booth of this, and you could have a whole booth of this. He said, I think you're doing your work a disservice by showing all of these things in the same tent. The customers don't know where to look. They don't know what you do. And you're not presenting them in their best light. And last year I forgot that advice and decided to show 2D and 3D together to experiment with that again. And it didn't work out so well. But interesting the way people will come into a booth with more than one medium and zero in on one and completely ignore the other. So I knew that it was a gamble, and I was willing to take that gamble because I want to change over my body of work to just sculpture. And so it was very interesting and very much appreciated, that constructive criticism that I got for that from him.
I think when you attend these different festivals and art shows and, tent situations, most artists doing these events tend to be generous with their information. If you approach them and introduce yourself and ask questions, you're likely to get your answers. And, there are artists out there who don't want to give away major secrets, but that doesn't mean they won't answer the question about, hey, what do you think of this show? And what else are you doing? And, make friends, ask your questions.
Just don't do it while they have somebody in there trying to buy some work.
Right.
Anybody have any more questions?
I do. What advice do you have for juring into Best of Missouri Hands? Because that's my next goal.
I think the same as we've said: consistency, not watermarks. The first time I applied, I had watermark. I picked the wrong images, sent them in. They were all watermarked, and it's like, what? I didn't get in. Oh, your images were watermarked. So that's a biggie.
Yeah, we just can't stress enough. Follow all of the rules. I mean, it sounds like it's nitpicky. The instructions say 300 DPI and you do 72. There's a reason that show, whether it's Best of Missouri Hands or it's an outdoor event or an international call for entry for whatever, they have those in place for a reason. And when you deviate from it in any way, there's a strong chance you're not even going to get looked at. So read the fine print, take your notes. That's why I have my binder, so that I know that ABC show wants 300 DPI, but XYZ show wants 72. And I follow those every time. And that might mean retaking images. It might mean resizing images. It might, whatever that might be. It's the same mug, but I have 18 different images of it. And that would be why. So just read the fine print and make sure that you follow the fine print.
The other thing on the Best Missouri Hands, there is a PowerPoint or some kind of a document out on our website that kind of gives you tips. Those tips would apply for any juried show, because that's the goal behind the Best Missouri Jurying, is it is run just like a juried show would be run. It shows when you put your images up, you're going to see all 4, the jury is going to see all 4 of your images. So things like, don't have the one on the left and the one on the right. If it's a face or whatever facing out, have them facing in. So, when you go left to right, your eyes move into your pictures, not away from them. But all of those tips are in that document, and they will be valuable for you. And when you apply, I think we use Entry Thingy for that show, but it's just like all the other. You get an option to say, show me what the juror is going to see, a juror preview. So then you can see how your images are going to look on the screen for the jury. And that's a really helpful thing to do when you can have that option.
The other websites do that too. Cafe and Entry Thingy, they will have like a help section to give you those tips on resizing your images, or whatever it might be. So check out those help sections on any of those websites that you might be using.
Jamie?
Comment on that though. The Best of Missouri Hands jury PowerPoint, at least the one that was up last year, kept showing all of the images in a square. And so you don't know when you upload individual images, you don't know, or is there a way to know how the jury is going to look at them in order?
The order on your preview is the order that they will see. So once you hit the preview, and on Zapplication, it will be preview as a juror. And so they will come up in the order 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the order that they're going to see them in. The booth
Okay.
shot will be last.
So,
Gotcha.
so
That
I'll
makes
throw
sense?
something in. Yeah, Jamie. So some juries, they do see 4 images, 2 on top of 2. So like how Wanda was talking, like say with me with animals, like my first animal, if they're viewing them straight across, my first animal is going to look in and my last animal is going to look back. You're never going to direct them off the screen. So if they're showing them in a square, you want your eye to easily flow like in a circle. You know, so on your work, it's a little different because your work is free form and stuff like that. So it might not be, you know,
Direction might
as,
not be an issue.
but like they've been saying, being cohesive. So like you don't want to have 3 of your images that are, you know, in a bright blue palette and stuff. And then you throw one in that's a muted pink
Right.
or, you know, you want all your colors to be, you want them to play together nicely, you know, basically. You want it to be pleasing to your eye. If it's not pleasing to your eye, it's not going to be pleasing to the judge's eyes either.
And a
So-
lot of times on a show, you be able to look and it will have a how jury is going to view the image, and they will say if it's going to be on projected or on a screen, and that can make a difference. So, but that information should be on your show information as to how they're going to view.
Okay.
And also too, even though I'm very involved with Best of Missouri Hands and stuff, I don't have anything to do with the jury process. I don't see who applies. I don't know nothing. So if you want to send me your images, because I've helped, you know, several of our members and stuff, just because like what these ladies have been talking about, I've been through it too and stuff, and I understand. So maybe, you know, a month from now, you will have forgotten something that they've covered today, and I can look at your images and give you some, you know, some kind, easy critiques that, you know, that you might be able to make an easy adjustment to improve your application. So I'm happy to do that. I saw Joanne that you were concerned about that too and stuff. So I'm happy, you know, or you can always throw things on the Best Missouri Hands page too and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing in there. Our members are good people and they're willing to help you out too, just like, you know, Angel and Linda have done here today. So don't be afraid to put your stuff out there and ask for help.
So do
I
all
would-
like go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I would also say the St. Louis Art Fair mock jury. I did that last year. I learned so much. And so then when I applied for the jury later on, I was able to get in, which I wasn't totally expecting, but I was very pleased. But I think I learned so much from the mock jury. So I would definitely recommend that.
The first mock jury I ever attended was when Best Missouri Hands had the Art Smart conference here in Springfield. And, you know, the people that I was sitting next to, they were all going, well, that's kind of nitpicky. Well, that's kind of nitpicky. Well, you know what? That's if that's the game you're going to play to get into an art show, you got to know the rules and take that rug out, take your sign out, take those plastic flowers out, take that stuff out of there. It's not doing you any good, as you know, and follow those rules. It is a game, you know, and you'll find on Jury Image Evaluation or on Art Fair Lounge, there's constant discussion going on about what a jury's looking for, why it's not fair, blah, 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 blah. That's the game. Those are the rules. If you want to play the game, know the rules and follow them, and you'll be able to get in the game. Otherwise, you're just wasting your jury fees.
Well, and I want to emphasize, having just organized a group exhibit, following all of the guidelines is important, because even if the gallery will let you in with something that's not right, they will remember that you brought in work that
Oh,
wasn't what they requested,
Angel knows about
hanging
that.
right. Yes,
Yes.
any of that. So really read them all,
Mhm.
because as Angel mentioned, you can get opportunities beyond that exhibit, but you can also be, quote, banned, or at least on probation if you aren't, if you're not reading all of those guidelines
Right.
and following them. It's the little things that can make a difference to what opportunities come your way.
And none of us want to be that problem person. None of us want to be the person that the coordinators of the show remember because we bitched all the whole time,
Yeah.
or complained. And it was like, well, the rule said you can't do that. And you're up there going, but I want to do that. It's like,
Mhm.
don't be that person.
So having curated 2 of the on the road shows and having 30 to 40 artists with 3 pieces each, I can tell you that every time somebody deviated, it cost me time. And that was, well, I have to stop what I'm doing and tell this person no, or I have to stop what I'm doing and apologize to the gallery because somebody did something that was totally against the rules. It's frustrating and unnecessary, and it
And it will
makes
not ingratiate you to the people putting the show on.
no, and it makes Best of Missouri Hands look bad because we're wrangling people who can't follow the rules. You know, a horrible example this time, which I thought I'd never see, is somebody altering the application so they could enter more pieces.
They did what?
They altered the application so they could enter more pieces. But that took time out of my day to go, hey, you can't do this. You have to pick 3. Send this back to me the right way. So every day it was answering an email, putting out a fire, saying no, saying, okay, but we've said all along, you can't do it this way. There's no shipping. There's delivery is this time to this time. There's all these little things that go into organizing a big exhibit. And every time somebody deviates, it costs somebody work, somebody time.
Absolutely. And with an outdoor show the same way. If it says that your setup time is at 10 a.m. and you show up at 6 a.m. and go, but I want to go ahead and set up. It's like, no, we've got this set up the way we're trying to keep this organized. And if you want to come in and present yourself as somebody who doesn't have to follow the rules, you will not ingratiate yourself to those people that are putting that show on. And
you do get a bad reputation.
You get a bad reputation. And so you have to pick your battles. If you're going to battle at all, but you do yourself in the show or exhibit or any pop-up show or whatever, you're going to be invited to more art shows and be more well received by the shows and given some, if you do need a favor, when you get there, if something happens, they're going to be happy to help you rather than go, man, you're that person who's a pain in the ass and we're not helping you at all.
Right. Right.
Not that would ever happen, but.
Well, just as a different example, I showed at Jacoby Art Center twice before our on the road show. And because I followed their guidelines and was as helpful as I could be, when I went to them and said, hey, we've got this group, could we consider having a show in your facility? And they're like, hey, we've got September open, come on. When you play nice with others, it helps in the long run. And in this case, it helped our entire organization have another exhibit.
Right. And I can also relate something that happened recently with an exhibition at the Creamery, their member show, my sister's piece, a glass piece. The exhibition ended. It was the day to pick up. The day before pickup, that piece broke. Somebody came into the gallery, knocked it over, her glass piece, and it shattered. They were forthright about it. And my sister was like, I have breakable pieces and it broke. There's nothing I can do about it. You can't unbreak something. So how you react is what you can control, not what happens. And so if a piece breaks, a piece breaks. You got to be, if you're working with breakable or meltable work, I guess you have to be prepared for what could happen.
And that sometimes is in the fine print too. We are not responsible for XYZ, and you got to weigh that option too.
Well, I will tell you what, ladies, I think we could go on for a couple more hours. I think we almost need a part 2 and maybe a part 3 to this discussion, because it is something that is very important, whether you're exhibiting, at a gallery, or if you're doing outdoor shows or indoor shows or whatever. I mean, there's just so much information out there. And so I was glad to have you two ladies here with us today to share from your experiences and stuff. Angel, can you tell us what opportunities Best Missouri Hands members are going to have in 2025 to participate in exhibits?
I have 2 on the road exhibits scheduled. One will be in Columbia at Columbia Art League in late spring. I don't have the dates in front of me. And then another one will be in the fall, in the November-ish time frame, and that will be I'm drawing a complete blank. That will be near.
Is that is Chillicothe?
That's it. That's it. Because
Okay.
in my head, Chillicothe is in the boot heel, and it is not. So
It's
yes,
kind of in the middle, isn't it?
it's closer to Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but and that was another situation where I had shown at Columbia Art League, and I reached out to them. Hey, we've got a group. What do you think? And they were all for it. And the gallery owner in Chillicothe found herself in a bind, changing of the guard and whatever. So she reached out and said, I'd love to host you guys. So this, kind of does go back to the whole, if you play nice with others, you reap the benefits. So for right now, I have 2 scheduled in 2025, and I'm still trying to talk to the Creamery in Springfield about something in 2026.
Nice.
Past that, I don't know. But these will all be titled on the road, and we will be moving towards an entry thingy or cafe type situation so that we can avoid some of the headaches of the last 2. But because you're a member of Best Missouri Hands, that gets you into these shows. They're not juried. You just submit your stuff. But you might also consider in your area, what else is there? For Linda in Springfield, it's the Springfield Regional Arts Council. For Joplin, we've got something similar. Maybe there's a painters guild or a, whatever in your area. Join those, because sometimes they have exhibits that have nothing to do with a juried situation, but it gets your feet wet. Here in Joplin, there's also Spiva Center for the Arts, and they have 2 exhibits every year. All you have to do is be a member, and you can be a part of this, and you gain experience. You have the opportunity to network. You have the opportunity to maybe make a sale. So see what's in your vicinity. Best Missouri Hands is not everything. It's great, but there might be something in your area too.
And also don't discount volunteering. I always encourage artists to volunteer. Kim is the best volunteer in the world, but volunteer for art shows, volunteer to help hang exhibitions. Everybody needs volunteers. And you can gain, if nothing else, networking is it's a great opportunity when you volunteer to network with artists and coordinators and promoters and galleries. And if you're available to volunteer, I highly recommend it.
And it's quite the education. So now you understand why there's no sawtooth hangers.
Yes.
All of that will start to make more sense if you are in a situation where you can ask questions and go, okay, why did you hang that there? why can't we do it this way? The people who are hanging these shows, who have been hanging shows for years and years and years, can answer your questions.
On that note, the Columbia Art League is my, I don't know, I guess my home gallery. I'm a member and I have been for a couple of years. The dates for that show are April 22nd through May 8th.
Okay. Yeah, I have it written down in my
Yeah,
office.
well, for everyone else who's
Yeah.
looking at it. And if you need help with that, I'd be happy to
Cool.
assist since I'm here and very familiar with that gallery.
We will take advantage of that. Because
I might regret that later, but
Nah, you won't.
Yeah, that's a over 4-hour drive for me, so I will take you up on that.
yeah, well, I will do what I can to assist with that.
And I can too, because Columbia is just an hour from me. So, and Peggy lives in Columbia, so we'll
Yeah,
definitely get you help.
And
Peggy
I'm
was
only 30
volunteered to
minutes.
take work.
Well,
All
I
right,
guess
does
we better wrap this
anybody-
up.
Yeah, does anybody have any last minute questions? Okay, thank you everybody for taking time to join us today. It has been fun and educational. Definitely get on the Best Missouri Hands member page, stay up to date on things. Once the YouTube video is up, Wanda will post the link to that if you need to rewatch it or if you want to share it or anything. And don't forget the St. Louis Art Fair mock jury. I think that'd be a good experience for you. And Art Smart, Best Missouri Hands has our professional development workshop, Art Smart conference next year, and we'll also have a mock jury. And I think we've got a great speaker and stuff. So I hope to see you ladies and gentlemen there. So thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.